What's happening, everybody? How y'all doing out there? Hope your 2020 is kicking off to a good start. Well, I'm back in the saddle, and I got a great guest and drummer Brad Roberts, AKAJizmak de Gusher of Gwar. AKAJizmak de Gusher of Gwar, who's actually celebrating 30 years of drumming with the band. But we caught up while Gwar was playing a string of holiday shows and wrapping up a busy touring cycle for their last record, The Blood of Gods, where we got to talk about the multifaceted merch machine that is the band, recalling shows in the early 90s, the game changer that was seeing Bad Brains for Brad, the evolution of prop design for the band, you know, porn stars, sweatshops, broken noses, arrests, all that good stuff. It's all in there, kids. I also botched his name like a doofus at the top of this one, so I hope you enjoy me fumbling through this episode for a couple of minutes in my post-Christmas haze. Edibles can leave you feeling a little bit hazy. What can I say? Crash Bang Boom Podcast can be found on iTunes Podcast, my SoundCloud and YouTube pages, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and more. If you like what you hear, feel free to check out into the previous 160-plus episodes and give me a like, a subscription, a positive rating, and or a glowing review, or all the above. The support is appreciated. That would be the shit. Shout out to my sponsor, New Orleans Record Press. If you're looking at releasing vinyl, go on over to NewOrleansRecordPress.com to look at the myriad of vinyl coloring, packaging, mastering, electroplating, lacquer cutting, and other options. Plus, you can use that handy little real-time quote generator, and they print 12 and 7-inch records at both 150 and 180 gram variants. Need assistance with design? They can help you with that, so give them a holler. Check them out. And that's NewOrleansRecordPress.com. So without further ado, here we go. Brad Roberts, a.k.a. with the one and only Gwar. Crash, bang, boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
All right, I'm sitting here at the Warsaw Music Venue in Brooklyn, and I'm here with John Roberts, the slave tech of
Wait a minute, it's
Gizmak.
Brad Roberts. Can't even get my name right. Doesn't want Gizmak to break through the wall and kill us both, you puke. What are you doing?
Oh, God damn it, man. Introduce
All
yourself.
right, I'm Brad Roberts, and I'm the slave drum tech for Gizmak, the drummer of Gwar.
There it is. See, there's a few more words than I'm accustomed to. That's what got
it's Brad
me.
Roberts, a.k.a. Gizmak.
There it is. Well, man, it was nice talking to you.
Cool. It's done. Great. Let's go.
Great. I got some beers I'd like to drink personally. What's going on with these little run of shows that y'all are doing here?
Well, Sleazy P. Martini, Gwar's manager, he always has us do a little holiday run of shows after Christmas because, you know, it's the time when people really want to get away from their families and they're apt to spend money because what they got for Christmas was total garbage.
Right.
You know, something from Brookstone or Amazon or whatever, and they hate that. So they come out to the show. So we always book like 5 shows after Christmas running into New Year's.
Yeah.
And then after New Year's, we kind of call it quits.
Gotcha. What were the other 4 shows? Where were those other 4 shows that you played outside of this one?
So it's D.C. last night, New York tonight at the Warsaw in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And then we go to Cleveland, House of Blues, Chicago, I don't know where, and then we end in Cincinnati on New Year's Eve.
Nice. Playing a New Year's Eve
Bogarts.
show.
Yeah.
Have y'all done a New Year's Eve show here in New York before?
You know, I don't think in any recent
Okay.
memory that we've played one. I know we do Richmond or D.C. from
Right.
time to time, and
There it is.
And every once in a while, you know, whoever throws the most money at Gwar, Cincinnati apparently this year gets the New
Won it.
Year's Eve show. Yeah, they win.
That's awesome, man. Well, this is a big production, so sometimes you need to collect the ducats to keep this happening. I would guess.
Yeah, we have to pay for all the Christmas presents we bought.
Exactly, man. Well, I guess 2017's record, Blood of Gods, did y'all do a pretty good run for that record?
Yeah, we did. We did almost a year and a half for that.
Yeah.
So we just finished up the second leg of the U.S. this past fall, and then we went to Europe. We just got back from Europe. We went there with Voivod
Awesome.
for a couple weeks. And this is really it. This is the last 5 shows, and then Gwar goes to make another record in 2020.
Nice.
So
Do y'all have plans to do it in Virginia or?
I'm not sure what the plans are for
Yeah.
that just yet. We got some songs. We're writing more, and we know what'll be out next year.
Right.
Actually, the big news for Gwar is probably next year is the 2020 is the 30th anniversary of the Scumdogs of the Universe record.
That's right.
So we're gonna release a super huge, cool box set, vinyl, all this specialty stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to do a sort of a re-record release party 30 years later. So that'll probably be a big event somewhere.
Wow.
And that'll probably be the only really kind of one-off shows planned for 2020. We're really going to focus on the new record.
Yeah. When you think back to when you first joined, and I've got some stories about seeing y'all in the early days, at least, you know, when you were just in the band for a couple of years, I guess, at that point, it always surprised me the level of production that would happen at the shows. Early on, how was it making that stuff happen? And was it that much tougher to start to work out all the kinks because it's such a production, you know?
Yeah, well, Gwar started before I got in there in '89, so this technically is my 30th year in Gwar. It was like an art school, you know, project in college that was coupled with Dave Brocky's punk band Death Piggy, and they kind of mashed them together. And it was kind of like an art school project. One was a movie, one was Dave's band. And then by the time I got in the band, they had finished their first record. You know, they had done a U.S. tour or two with, you know, El Duce and the Mentors or whatever.
Right.
And, you know, booked it themselves. And when they got back, they had some serious offers from labels, and they needed to get the band together. So I got auditioned. I joined the band. And at that point, things were, you know, super touch and go with money. I mean, Gwar used to put their own money in to make the props and all this stuff, and then they would go play a show and they'd be destroyed immediately because they were made of, in the old days, paper mache or whatever, you know. So yeah, early on, like when we trying to get that first record deal, we were going to take all of that money and make the Gwar show that we knew we all had in our heads, you know? And those, you know, and at the time I was just coming in to play drums, so I didn't really know anything about the mythos and the grand concept that Gwar was, but I certainly learned really quick and was having a good time with that. But it was tough in the beginning. We weren't getting paid anything.
I know, that's what I was trying to imagine.
$10 a day or something for per diem.
Spending significantly more.
We used to steal each other's food off of the bus. Everybody would like hoard some food, and we would just go steal it because we were hungry, you know, whatever it took.
Wow,
it's just like an art commune. It's just a bunch of dudes piled in an international school bus.
Yeah.
And just, we can do this.
Right.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, man. And
it was a different time, too, in the early 90s. It was right on the cusp of where hardcore was dying in the mid to late 80s.
Grunge was about to start.
And grunge was about to start. So there was this middle pocket from 85 to 90 where a lot of cool stuff was going on. Butthole Surfers and things like Gwar. And we were all riding the tailcoats of the hardcore movement, which really died in 85, into, you know, what we thought was going to be the next best thing, but obviously grunge ruined that.
Right.
Stupid grunge. You know, but you can name so many records that came out in like 89, 90, and 91 that are almost better than anything that came out decades after.
91 is my particularly favorite year.
Of course.
I go on constantly about it.
Yeah.
It's good times, man. I remember the first time that I saw y'all came through New Orleans and played the New Orleans Music Hall. I don't remember who played with y'all on that gig, but what I do very specifically...
It might have been Crowbar.
You know what? It might have actually been. They put out a record in 91 as well, so that could have been that maybe was what was going on. But I remember the band Exhorter now that they've returned and are banned again, you know, and they've kind of been underground speed thrash heroes from New Orleans, you know.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Amazing
that
band.
That drummer is...
Yeah,
he's the man.
Killing.
Yeah.
The original guy, Chris Nail, on those records was amazing, and now they got Sasha Horn playing with him, and he's doing an incredible job with them.
Chris. I remember early on, like, guy was a demon.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Well, some dude showed up because Exhorter was notorious for doing this skank ball thing. So they would just have a giant pit and they'd throw a ball out, and whoever ended up with it at the end of the song would get a present that could, God only knows what the hell the present even was. But one of the dudes showed up and we were talking to him right when y'all started, and they go, "Yeah, that's the dude who won skank ball at the Exhorter show recently." A bunch of hey bras, you know. And then right when it started, it just turned into a fucking like human maelstrom, and someone's head hit my nose, and I broke my nose, and my nose has been fucked up ever since then. So every now and again when it gets cold and I wipe my nose and my nose cracks a little bit and I kind of wiggle it back, I think, oh yeah, that happened to that fucking Gwar show.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think at that Gwar show, and the reason I brought up Crowbar, I remember it distinctly because I think 50 miles outside of New Orleans, our old International Harvester school bus broke down.
Oh.
Tried to get it fixed, and we weren't sure if we were going to make the gig. Somehow our tour manager was trying to find us transportation, like a Greyhound bus, charter bus, something like a couple of vans, whatever. Couldn't find anything. And next thing we know, there's like these two limos that pull up. And then we rushed to the gig, and we're super late. I mean, we're so late. Like, Crowbar's already played.
Oh,
and
no.
we got to go in and set
And get
up.
your props in it. And
Almost. I mean, it wasn't quite that bad, but it was late. And we raced there, and we get, like, the first time any of us had ever even seen a limo. And, like, there's props and dildos hanging out of the sunroofs and shit. Like, all the costumes are piled in there. We're crammed in there. 2 limos to the gig. And I remember us walking across the stage in front of the full crowd to take our shit into the dressing room to get ready.
Wow.
I mean, it might not have been the same show, but it was definitely the music hall where that happened.
So maybe it was actually
Maybe
that
it
show.
was
I didn't
that
know the
show.
whole backstory on it.
Yeah.
That's insane. If
I
that's
just
the case.
remember that distinctly. Like, what's this limo thing?
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, I mean, do you have a guesstimate of how many shows you've played with Gwar?
I
in
don't.
30
You
years?
know, our guy in the group, Bob Gorman, he's sort of the Gwar archivist, and he's the recorder of all things Gwar. And him and Roger Gassman did our big coffee table book, Let There Be Gwar,
Right.
which is killer. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so thick. It's got history in there that I've even forgotten.
Awesome.
And that he's the guy that would know, but I'm thinking I'm approaching. It's got to be somewhere in like 2,000 shows.
I was gonna,
I think with Gwar, maybe more.
because y'all, I mean, Gwar's have been road dogs for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when people forgot about us after Beavis and Butthead happened in the early 90s or MTV or whatever, like we never really stopped touring or putting out records. Like we've been doing it consistently
Yeah.
since then. So it
Amazing.
wasn't like, where are they now? It's like, we were always here.
Right. Oh my God.
World needs a Gwar.
Yeah, absolutely. But I remember when Phallus and Wonderland came out. That was another thing. It was around the same time, I believe, after America Must Be Destroyed, right?
Yeah,
And then-
they were sort of made simultaneously. The one is the video
Exactly.
version of the record, and some of the record is the soundtrack to that long form video.
Right. I imagine that was a process coordinating that much more and the live show. It's like you've got the record, you've got the whole thematic aspect of that, and you have this extended video which got nominated for a Grammy, which is fucking crazy. And then y'all have the coordination of the show. So it's just, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine a little bit of...
Yeah, Gwar does twice the work of as any band. So the time it takes them to put out a record, we put out a record, a full theatrical stage show, and probably a full-length movie.
Right.
Like we did that for a lot of years, but
Yeah.
then we got a little older and decided that it was too much work.
That was a lot of
But
work.
you know, they used to give you money to make videos and stuff like that in those
Right.
days. But that was really important for Gwar early on, is to show that, you know, Gwar is this theatrical sort of cinematic thing. You know, the reason Gwar is just known as the rock band is because that was the easiest back then. That was the easiest platform you could use to get the word out there. You could go play a show anywhere. You could go play a backyard party. You could play a venue and then do your crazy show on there. But really, the whole original idea of Gwar was a movie.
Right.
And probably a movie that still hasn't been made. Like the Star Wars saga doesn't even compare to the movies that, you know, the movies we could make about the Gwar mythos would be way beyond that stuff. You know?
I know. It's wild, man.
And so that still really hasn't been done, because at some point,
Yeah.
you know, using the stage as our platform, it just kind of like, it just snowballed, and we've just been doing it ever since.
Yeah. Now the process of getting that stage show together, much like other theatrical presentations where you have like a dress rehearsal, so to speak. I imagine at some point when you're like, we're getting close to going out on a tour. Now you have to coordinate the show, I would imagine, and the props and everything else, because everything works with the set and everything. So how are y'all even working that out within a practice space, or where were y'all rehearsing to make that happen?
Yeah, there's a warehouse, secret, undisclosed location
Right
that
on.
we do all the Gwar stuff. All
Yeah.
the props are there, and we build the stuff there, write the songs there, have our studio.
Amazing.
It's a little bit small. We don't have adequate rehearsal space, so we always try to go to a big room and really work out the choreography.
There you
know,
go.
we rent a space for a couple weeks before the tour. But yeah, everybody's simultaneously working on that stuff, and we have meetings about the show and about the props and about what music and songs are gonna, you know, drive the dialogue and things like that. What's the
Unbelievable.
concept, you know? Like,
Right.
This particular one's pretty good that we're doing tonight. You know, it's kind of a surprise. So everybody out in the podcast here this will air probably after
It will.
the show. So, you know, you got to get down to see a Gwar show at some point. They're different every single time we go out. There's never the same show.
Yeah.
There's always a different storyline, different narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, outside of I guess it's 5 members on stage?
No, there's about 7 of us.
Okay.
in Gwar, and we have plenty of crew and plenty of extra characters playing.
That's what I was gonna say. How big is like on this tour? What's the
it's
full?
like 13.
13.
Yeah, with crew
Wow.
and
Shit.
TM merch, everybody.
Right.
About 13.
And I was just looking at your merch down there. Not surprisingly, pretty decked out. Awesome merch game y'all got going on.
Yeah, Gwar fans love every little thing that we make, man. They've been supporting us a long time, and they just love it. They'll buy one of everything. So
I feel like y'all are kind of the underground Kiss in that regard, and your ability to sort
got
of
a lot of
merch
great
out.
imagery. Imagery is great. The way we look, the comics, and all the stuff that the art guys in Gwar draw. Like, yeah, we got a lot of stuff to put out there.
It's a factory.
Yeah, I wish it was a factory. It'd be great. It's called Sweatshop Merchandising. We just have children work there. That's how Gwar rolls.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, going back to the Phallus and Wonderland thing, I've got a funny story about that one as well. One of my friends came by and had mentioned that he wanted to watch it, and he brought a date out to a house party that I was having at my parents' house when they were out of town. And they were
a happy story, like he showed her Phallus and Wonderland, and then they got married, kind of thing. Or she immediately left screaming.
Well, sort of in between. He showed her that movie because that was predicated on why he wanted to take her to my bedroom, and I realized I'd left the blinds up and it was on the first floor. So me and a few of my buddies, after they were in there for a while, walked on the side and realized, oh, they're totally going at it sexually, and we both while this is playing on the TV, and we were just like, what is going on here? And at the time when we were from the minimal things that we saw, we were all like, she seems like she's had some experience before, and she actually went on to become a porn star, and I'll tell you her name later off air, but
all right.
That actually happened as well. So there's yet another completely bizarre story seared into my mind.
Gwar creating porn stars with their visuals since 1991.
Unfucking believable, man. When you think about all of once again, the production that goes into these shows, are there any particular ones, maybe earlier ones, where technically y'all just had tons of problems? Because it's so much. I can just see,
man, there's
problems.
Always problems with Gwar. I don't think one really sticks out to me so much as that Gwar, like tonight, for example, we're at the Warsaw in Brooklyn, and it's cramming a square peg in a round hole. That's pretty much Gwar's entire career. It's like all the stuff that we have, whether it's a lot of stuff or the stuff that we want to do, a lot of that doesn't fit in sort of the standard cookie cutter kind of rock scenarios, rock venues, whatever, like it's just a different animal than any other band. And most bands are all different in their own way, but the one thing they all have is just they're a band, like when we travel anywhere, we got to carry all this stuff, all these costumes and stuff to wear. So we just can't let's just grab some guitars and fly to, Peru and do this festival. They can't do that.
You got to ship everything.
You got to ship, you got to hockey bag some stuff. So there's always been, extra logistics for Gwar that most bands never even have to worry about.
No.
So that's why we love our tour manager, Eddie Ortel.
Right on.
Because he's been working us for like 17, 18 years.
Really?
Yeah, and he's great at logistics. And,
he would have to be.
Yeah, so, and it's just, for us, we just see that problem solving, like, it's just normal for us. So, like, the amount of work doesn't really phase us. We're just used to, like, we got to take 3 steps back to go 2 forward.
Right.
So we just do it because Gwar's always going forward.
Exactly.
Like, Gwar's just a bunch of guys getting an idea and pointing their dicks in the same direction and knocking shit over with it. That's what Gwar basically.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Is what we do.
Oh man, that is too good. Oh God, when you mentioned the paper mache prosthetics and stuff earlier.
That was old school. That was even before I got
right.
there. They didn't know how to use latex and rubber and fiberglass and stuff like that
so
yet.
That's one way you've been able to get a little more mileage out of this.
Oh yeah. The stuff we make now is all super industrial. It's heavy duty. It's even better than movie quality because we have to beat it over the head 150 shows a year.
True.
And you make movie props, it's just one take and then it's destroyed.
Right.
But Gwar stuff's got to do every night. On a 50 city tour.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It gets durable, but latex is still an organic material, so it kind of breaks down. Sometimes it rots, it gets gooey.
Yeah.
It's got sweat and spew and all kinds of stuff all over it all the time. So,
Yeah.
you know, it does break down after a while.
When I saw you back in the early days, at the music hall show, for instance, I remember at the time, I believe you had the big red jaw thing happening.
Yeah, it's a little bit the same.
It's
Yeah,
kind of the
we kind
same?
of vamp them, you know.
Yeah.
We just the characters have sort of stayed the same over the years, but we just vamp them and make them look sicker and meaner. And as
Right.
technologies get better, we sculpt something different, but it still looks like AKAJizmak or it still looks like Beefcake. But
Yeah.
you know, every chance, you know, it's usually every 3-4 years or so. Like, all right, let's redo the costume line to make it look even just sicker.
Right.
You know.
Was that a process of acclimating to just wearing? I mean, you're not wearing as much stuff as the other members necessarily, but you're still wearing some shit.
Yeah. I got to wear stuff, but I don't have the big shoulder pads because I need
Right.
my arms free to play drums.
Yeah.
It's still, you try it. I dare any drummer on
Oh,
the
no,
planet to come wear my shoes for one.
That's a big question.
The feet, wear the feet and the head, and I dare you can't even play your own songs and that stuff.
Oh, I'd be
much
willing to
less
bet it.
try to play a Gwar song.
Are you playing with like extended feet? Are they platforms? What are you even wearing?
No, it's a latex prosthetic over like a Van slip-on.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty much a lightweight shoe, but it does have the rubber,
Right.
like dog-looking foot over
Right.
top of it. You know, and no one really sees it. I don't have to do it. I just do it because I'm a badass.
Exactly.
No,
You gotta
it's
keep
just,
it real.
You know, because usually right before you go on, there's like a photo shoot, so you got to be in full gear, and then I get up there and I got to remove the legs and the.
Right.
I don't have time to like
Yeah.
undo everything, so I would just keep the shoes on
Yeah, man.
and just learn how to play with them.
My God.
I'm sure I'd have been a much better drummer if I hadn't worn that shit for 30 years. I'd be great by now.
Totally, man. I remember when I saw you, I would be like, I wouldn't want to do that shit. Yeah. So props to you for doing it.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Fuck yeah, man.
You just do it. That's our motto. Just talk about it, do it.
Yeah, point dicks in a direction, knock shit over. Just do it. When you think about, I guess, one of the more extensive runs that y'all did, offhand, do you know what maybe one of the longest tours y'all did?
Yeah, we did 12 weeks in Europe once.
Really?
And we had like 8 weeks of Gwar, and then we had, you know, another 4 to 6 weeks, or I can't even remember how long, but I thought it was about 3 months. We had another side project called X-Cop. So we just piggybacked the tours together. We finished Gwar, and then most of the Gwar guys were in X-Cop, so we did that. And I just remember there's a tour photo of us at the end of this thing, and we just look like grizzled shit. Like, we looked just like a gang of delinquents, like Euro trash or something. We just all no shaving, and clothes are just filthy. And it was in the mid '90s, so we were a lot younger, and I just remember we just didn't want to go back. I just never wanted to see Germany again after that tour.
I bet.
It took like a decade for that to wear off.
Unbelievable, man. Wow.
But that was probably the longest one that I remember. It was just continuous. Usually we do like 2 months and we get a couple 2-3 week break and we do another month, and you know, it's never more than like 8 week a single stretch. But it has been, so they're back to back, you know. Here's 2 months, 2 weeks off. Here's another 6 weeks. Here's 3 weeks off. Here's another month. You know, there's been stuff like that for sure.
Yeah. What were you doing, I guess, prior to it? Because I'm just imagining in my head this becoming sort of your life. So what was life like, I guess, sort of prior to all this?
Yeah, it was just, I kind of quit college because Gwar was going on tour. You know?
Wow.
I was just starting college and, you know, getting into it, and finished like the first semester, and then I got the gig with Gwar, and they're like, we got to go, and I'm like, all right, I'll get back to this, and then
30 years later,
I never got back to it, you know, and I've got kids, and
do you?
And they're adults, and you know, so it was just always work. Everybody always works jobs. Gwar,
yeah.
Only recently where we get to kind of full-time Gwar.
Yeah.
In the past, you know, maybe decade or 6-7 years where we get some full-time Gwar and we don't have to have secondary jobs.
Yeah.
But Gwar has tons of extra stuff. We got the Gwar bar in Richmond.
Yep.
You know, we always have sideline stuff. We got comics and card games coming out and all this other stuff that Gwar does because we're such a visual,
completely,
you know, thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what about drumming specifically? What attracted you to the drums in the first place?
You know, I hated it at first. I remember I remember like 10 years old, and it was just some sort of elective or whatever. You're like in elementary school, like, here, teach the kids how to play. And I didn't pick an instrument like an idiot, and I picked drums, and the teacher was really this monotone, like, hello, class, take out your books and turn to pay. It was just mind-numbing as a 10-year-old.
Right.
You know, you wanted to go outside and have fun or ride bikes or whatever you wanted to do.
Climb trees.
Yeah, and And I just remember like, no, I'm quitting. And I remember my mother, taking me to the principal's office. And she thought like at 10, nah, you're fickle, all your kid. But at 10, you're going to have to just stick with it. Even if you just stick it out for the 1 year. And then if you don't like it, quit. But you got to stick it out and finish it. You can't quit in the middle.
Yeah.
And she made me do that. And then it was over. By the time I'd hit, 11 or 12, it was, it was not only all the classic rock crap from being in Detroit with my uncles and all the Motown and all that stuff. But it was, get introduced to Devo and Fear and Billy Cobham playing 3 bass drums on Saturday Night Live, and like by then it was over in my mind,
Yeah.
And then the 80s start and it's hardcore, and then you're like, oh, I don't have to listen to my uncles and my parents' shitty classic rock music. This is our music. This is mine.
Right.
This is our music. And
Yeah.
And then it was over, and then I already knew what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
It was like a week I saw like Linda Ronstadt, Devo, Billy Cobham, Fear, and that was all on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
And I just knew especially after I saw Devo, I knew it was over.
Yeah.
And then you get a chance early on, getting kicked out, seeing the Bad Brains. You're like 14. They kicked me out immediately, but it only took like 2 songs. My life was changed.
Really? That was it?
Yeah, dude. As soon as you saw that, I was like, I know what I want to do.
Really?
Oh, hell yeah.
Instantaneous.
Oh, man, it was great. It was great. It was just like a cool period of time, like in 1 or 2 years, right in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And I was kind of too young to get into the club, into the club to see the bands, but I wasn't too young. I didn't understand what was happening, you know? So I was lucky that way.
Yeah. I love that early kind of angular proto-punk stuff like Devo and Gang of Four, and even like the first Police record, some of that really like angular.
All of that stuff's great.
I do.
All that stuff's my school.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
But now that you've gotten older and you can look back on it, do you look back and enjoy those classic rock records that maybe hardcore replaced?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Same
my
here.
family's from Detroit. I love all the classic rock and the Motown and Frank Sinatra, all that stuff. I mean, I rarely listen to metal anymore at this age. I love creating music that's heavy and playing it. But I'm not a student of the metal art, you know. Like, Judas Priest for me when I was 12, with Kiss, that stuff was great. Maiden, all of those things. But now, I don't know, we're so in this Gwar world most of the time, like we're always thinking about riff in terms of, our early experiences, Let's think about riff like, the way Celtic Frost does, or Rush, or Voivod, or like, well, how does Bad Brains think about riff, like, and just, we've had our own kind of thing. Richmond in particular was a weird little breeding ground for some kind of weird mathy metal in the early 90s. And you always hear new stuff and influences. You're like, oh, that's really cool. Let's steal a little bit from that. Yeah. And that's all I think drumming is. I'm just a big plagiarist, and I just play it like me, though. So it just ends up sounding like me. Like you put your personality into your instrument. Sure. But all the licks are ripped off.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. How have your kits evolved over the years, or has it pretty much been the same? Double bass, 2 toms, 2 rack toms, 2 floor toms? Like...
No, not really. I kind of messed around with it early in Gwar. They would put like spikes and stuff all over my drums, which would probably kill the sound. And they would wrap tentacles and crap around the cymbal stands and try to do weird stage stuff with it. Yeah. But it just I just kept, like, early on, we just keep watching, and we tour with other bands, and I watch other drummers, and or we would write something. I'd be like, I need some cymbals over on my left here, right? Because we'd write a part, and I was like, I just don't have, and then after a while, it's like, oh, it's Gwar. I could probably play everything I've ever written on a 4-piece kit, but it's Gwar, so it's an 8-piece kit, or you know. Just to have the look, because it's so heavy duty and metal, and we have these big costumes.
It does look awesome.
But it has been like sort of the same setup for me now for about 15 years. I just kind of got one, and I just stuck with it. And that's the 2 kicks, 2 racks, 2 floors, 2 chinas. Yeah. Kind of really, the classic Tommy Aldridge kind of style.
Right.
look, you know.
Yeah, I'm a fan of him.
Yeah, no,
He's still doing it.
61 and ripping.
Ripping.
I just saw him with Whitesnake.
Did you?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Really?
I don't know, man. Maybe he's older than 61, 65. He
could be in his mid-60s.
He looks the same. He still has hair.
Crazy hair. I know. Crazy wild man hair.
He still rocks it.
Does his like those little whipping motions over his head.
He played on all the good records.
Yeah, he really did.
All the good bands.
He played on a lot of great records, man.
Yeah, he's the classic. He's like the he's the stereotype, the mold you wanted to go. If you were in some sort of hair metal band,
yeah.
every drummer knew Tommy Aldridge, and they're like, they just have the same look, the same set, the same whatever. And I stole some shit from Aldridge.
Of course.
Who wouldn't?
Right. I hear you, man.
Yeah.
I talk about it a lot. I'm a fan of the 70s like classic rock guys. I love Ian Pace from Deep Purple.
Oh man, Ian Pace! I just got to meet him. And
are you serious?
Deep Purple is one of my favorite all-time bands.
That's what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like,
Fuck yeah.
He's unreal, and he's still great.
Yeah.
He's still great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He has when you have that's such a strong fundamental base like he does. That kind of stuff, if you just maintain it a little bit, you can play it almost. I mean, look at Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I kind of call him the Buddy Rich of rock.
Yeah.
I think the chops that he has and his ability to just keep that over time and sustain it and. Fuck, man, I love that band. And even, once again, you mentioned Whitesnake. I mean, the David Coverdale era stuff with Burn and Come Taste the Band, even when after Richie Blackmore left and Tommy Bolin played guitar on Come Taste the Band, man, up to Machine Head and rock and, everything.
Yeah, you're throwing out all that classic stuff, just Thin Lizzy, end of story.
Thin Lizzy's one of those bands, right?
Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah. For me, though, I could go on and on about records from the 70s. Some guys say, like, the year you were born, you're attracted to records around the time in which you were born, is a theory that I've heard. Right. But it is interesting, somewhere between, like
the child brain has got music around it, doesn't comprehend it yet, but it just sticks.
Yeah.
You're like one.
Yeah, because I keep going back to those years, the like early to mid 70s, man. I love that shit. But Thin Lizzy, especially, such a great band. So tell me a little bit about this Gwar mythos that you referenced a little bit earlier.
AKAJizmak, he's the pounder of all things. I think he once told me that it was lucky that his brothers from outer space brought him to play drums for Gwar. Sleazy, fed us crack, put us in front of MTV, or AKAJizmak and those guys, they became rock stars. And I think AKAJizmak would probably be pounding people if he wasn't pounding drums. So they gave him an outlet. Sleazy P really gave him an outlet. Because I'm sure he would destroy this planet if it wasn't for the drums.
Absolutely. And the story is that he was thawed out, frozen and thawed out, to my understanding.
Yeah, Gwar, the story goes, the mythos is, a short version of it is, we're space marauders, we're raising hell in outer space. We really screw something up, and the master of all reality banishes Gwar to the shittiest place he can find in the galaxy, which is Earth.
Right.
He freezes Gwar in the Antarctic tomb, and the only way we got out was, at the time, the 80s hair metal bands were using so much hairspray that they poked a hole in the ozone layer. So that it de-thawed Gwar to it. And right as Gwar was sort of de-thawing because of the poofy-haired metal bands, Sleazy P. Martini, Gwar's manager, was, helicopter chase from the CIA. He's probably smuggling drugs. His helicopter crash lands in Antarctica, and he stumbles upon the Gwar tomb. And once he saw the monsters, he gave them a bunch of crack immediately so they wouldn't kill him.
Right.
And he takes Gwar back to New York and puts him in front of MTV, gives them guitars, makes them smoke tons of crack, and that's how one of the most cataclysmic rock bands in the world was born. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the run,
That's
man.
the short one. That's the short version. There's a lot of stories to Gwar that still aren't told.
So of the shows, obviously there have been so many over the years, one that sticks out in my mind is the one where Brocky got arrested. Rest in peace, of course, Dave Brocky. That was in, North Carolina? And what was the story with that? They saw the cuttlefish of Cthulhu, and it was too much for the masses?
Yeah, it's North Carolina. It's the early 90s, Tipper Gore's slapping the stickers on records, and, Two Live Crew is out with their nasty style of hip-hop and rap, which was genius.
Yeah.
And, Gwar was right there, and we were pretty offensive.
Totally.
We have a lot of, violence, sexual violence, like all kinds of social political commentary that was against the grain for America at that point. You know, really drawing attention in a parody way how fucked up American culture was and how just sick human beings are. You know, Gwar's just a weird funhouse mirror image of American society. It's not that extreme. You know, people get offended by it. I was like, you guys did it first. You know?
Right.
So that show is that, you know, you're in the Bible Belt of the South and we're playing Charlotte. And we do our thing. There's a skit. It was off of the America Must Be Destroyed tour. And we're doing the skit with Father Bohab, which is a priest-like character.
Yep, I remember this.
And, you know, this is way before, like, actually, I mean, we all knew that priests were screwing choir boys and were weird pedophiles and stuff. Even then, it just didn't come out until the 2010s that they actually caught, like, hundreds of guys doing it.
Yeah.
And that's just Boston. Just think about what it's like around the country,
Yeah,
right?
globally even.
So, yeah. So we're doing that, and we're in the Bible Belt of the South, and the Father Bohab skit, you know, he gets dealt with, an axe to the head.
Yeah.
He gets swords and all kinds of shit shoved up his ass.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a prop. It's
Right.
not even a real ass. But they found that really offensive. There's like undercover cop couples, you know, dressed like a guy and a girl. They're dressed as plain clothes, but you can tell they don't fit in a rock show.
Yeah.
And they come in, bust in the dressing room right after the show, you know, and like Brocky's there, half out of costume, still has the feet and the dick on, but he's nothing from the waist up, you know, and they're like, hold it, you know, hold it right there, you know, and they like arrest him, and they arrested the promoter of the venue too for putting the show on.
Wow.
And I think he's since, I can't remember the guy's name. I know one of my other guys in the group knows, but he's probably since written a book or some sort of essay about that particular incident.
Really?
Yeah, but that's kind of what it was at the time, you know, and that was the first time like, oh, we're arrested for obscenity and, you know, lewd and lascivious behavior, you know, like, and that's like all the great ones are. Frank Sinatra, Jim Morrison, you know, everybody's arrested. So Dave was no different, you know.
Right.
And we looked crazy. We were a lot younger then. He was like skinhead. He just shaved his hair off. It was like the very first show of the tour.
Oh, man.
We're like, oh, the tour's over.
Did y'all get him out in time to do the next show?
Yeah, it was fine. Like, you know, you post bail or whatever, but you had to go to this court date, you know, way months later down the road. And, you know, Brocky was a Canadian citizen with sort of like a permanent green card here.
Oh.
So there was a real danger of like, oh, you know, Gwar could be over if they find him guilty in some shitty North Carolina court.
Right.
They could send him back to Canada, and then Gwar would sort of be over. He wouldn't be in America anymore. They'd denounce they'd revoke his green card citizenship.
Oof.
So it was kind of, you know, like, oh, let's fight it and get all the press out of it and stuff. And then there was this, all right, we're going to fight it up to a point, and then make sure Brocky still stays in America so we can keep doing Gwar, you know?
Right.
So it was crazy. Nothing happened really, but we never did get the confiscated cuttlefish of Cthulhu.
Really?
Back. They put it like in a 5-gallon bucket and took it as evidence. You imagine they had to bring out the fucking cuttlefish, the big odorous dick in the courtyard, Exhibit A, you know? And,
unbelievable.
And the funny thing, the judge's name in that case was Richard E. Boner.
Come on, get
Dick
out of town.
E. Boner, I swear to God, that was the judge's name who presided over that case.
What a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
A bunch of dicks.
Well, you know, South sometimes in America, especially at that time, it's a little bit behind the times.
Yes, sir.
And it kind of stays that way. There's different pockets of America that socially evolve quicker than others, you know.
Definitely.
And the South is not one of them.
Right. Yeah, I'm from there. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but it's not. So you got to deal with that.
Gonna have some problems.
Got to deal with some small town shit.
Yeah, dicks freaking out about dicks. One of the things that I will ask you about is, you know, I've always been a fan of satire as a means of communication and having us given mankind the ability to laugh through struggle and just hardships and all the bullshit in life and be informed by it. You know, because otherwise it's obviously without that laughing mechanism, you're not getting through to people. So I always enjoyed that, and it can be a slippery slope, right? Because I mean, I think it's like the worse the presidents are, I feel like in this country, the better satire gets, and the better it gives that much more fodder and comedic material to comedians and comedy and satire. So, like, what are some of the things y'all have done to the presidents throughout the years?
Well, we've Gwar's killed every president since Ronald Reagan, you you know, like in effigy or in some sort of stage show or movie scenario.
Yeah.
And nobody really cares. No, nobody really cares that we do it, you know. But it's just like, you know, Carson or Jay Leno or Jimmy Fallon, they all make fun of the president. You know, it's satire. They can get away with it. Of course. It's not slander. Yeah. You know, and those things. And, yeah, when there's kind of sort of this oppressive, you know, regime or presidency in America, you know, it seems like art and culture kind of prosper in a way. Like I know the hardcore thing prospered a whole lot, and there was a whole big movement in music because of the Ronald Reagan era, and all that bullshit. Everything is fine, and just say no to drugs and all that crap. We weren't buying any of that crap, you know. Yeah. And countless other punk guys will say the exact same thing if they're from another punk band. I'm probably plagiarizing them because I believed it too. You know, that's why we're here. Right. And so, you know, Trump might be the same thing for a younger culture in America, and maybe they'll do something great culturally with art or theater or music or whatever, and something that's actually worthwhile and really long-standing will come out of, you know, this administration. Right. Because I'm sure young people are just so tired of it. And I know we were with Reagan. We just thought it was horseshit. Yeah. And I'm just hoping that the younger generation or millennials or whatever you want to call them do the same thing. You know, like hardcore became punk rock, which is now commonplace. You know, it's Green Day and Offspring. Right. Like, we used to get beat up for having blue hair at school. Now it's like a third kid has blue hair at school. Like no one cares anymore. So that's kind of neat. Monetizing it is kind of weird for old punk guys like us, you know. We're like, it's art, man. You don't get paid for art. You can't sell it to Budweiser, but, you know, the older you get, the more like, we'll sell that to Budweiser. You know? Like, I've been doing this long enough without money, you know. Right. But it's I don't know. The president thing is kind of funny, man. He's just an easy target. Yeah. But it's an interesting one with a lot of layers, you know. Totally. For sure. So no shortage of comedic elements. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's rampant. It's outrageous. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, man, it was good talking to you. Thanks for hanging. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all again tonight. I'll see if Jizmak wants to do this podcast next time. Okay. Yeah. Maybe he'll show up. Check in with him, see if he's interested, you know. Yeah. I'm sure he's going to beat me to death just for doing this podcast, but I'm taking my chances here. There you go. That's what it's all about. Yeah, make it good. Right on, man. Good talking to you. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to Brad for catching up. Always a riot to see Gwar, and definitely great hearing some of those stories. I mean, if you're going to do this for 30 years, I'd like to think you'd acquire more than a couple of outrageous ones, and he certainly had more than a couple of outrageous ones. Always a good time. Hope y'all enjoyed it. We'll catch you on the next one. Next week, Monday. Crash, bang, boom.